Hi, everyone. My name is Rachel Dodson. If you don't know me, I am the registered dietitian at Recovered and Restored Eating Disorder Therapy Center. If you don't know me, you should definitely go check out our YouTube channel. I have been on a few different videos with our clinical director, Gabby, who is the best. I'm bummed that it's just me today flying solo. Usually, Gabby and I are recording our little podcast. That's not really what it is, but it's always fun to have her in a video with me. But today I am flying solo. So hopefully I record everything correctly. So, like I said, if you don't know me, my name is Rachel. I work at Recovered and Restored. I believe there's a video. I actually know there is a video of Gabby kind of introducing me. You hear a little bit more of my story, but just to kind of give everyone a flyover view, I have been the dietitian at Recovered and Restored Eating Disorder Therapy Center for almost 3 full years now. It'll be 3 years this summer. I love my job. I promise I'm not just saying that. I think it is the biggest gift, the biggest honor and blessing and privilege of my life to get to walk alongside my clients as they are pursuing recovery, as they are healing their relationships with food. And I just love instilling hope in my clients that they can find and rediscover the joy of eating and the fellowship and community that food is in all of our lives. So I went to Westchester University for my undergraduate degree, and I got my master's degree at Immaculata University. And here we are. We have a job, so that is awesome. Today, we are going to talk about the 4 types of hunger. So this is something that I talk about very often with my clients. So we're going to walk through the 4 different types of hunger in intuitive eating, and we're going to kind of take some left turns and talk a little bit about dealing with fullness and a hunger fullness scale, and it's going to be awesome. So if you have never heard of the 4 different types of hunger, you are not alone. It tends to be a surprise for a lot of our clients when they find out that often we don't even eat based on hunger that's physically driven. It can be confusing and almost it kind of feels like the opposite of intuitive eating, right? Like I think when people hear the concept or the idea of intuitive eating for the first time, they just think eat when you're hungry and stop when you're full. And that's part of it, but it's not that black and white. And that's why it can be really helpful to work with the treatment team as you are navigating just the murky waters of recovery. So it can be really confusing to challenge yourself to eat even in the absence of hunger. But it is normal, it is necessary, especially in eating disorder recovery, but also in everyday life. And so these principles and understanding the 4 types of hunger is goes beyond just your eating disorder recovery. So oftentimes with my clients, I will use a hunger and fullness scale, and I'm sure there's a way on Zoom that I could display one. We're not going to do that because I don't know how. So, anyway, a hunger and fullness scale, if you can picture it with me, it's a scale ranging from numbers 1 through 10. And 1 through 5, it describes our hunger. And then, 5 through 10 is describing our fullness. So that can be 5 is neutral. So 5 is kind of that number where you don't really feel anything. Sometimes we eat when we're bored when we're at a 5, but you're not hungry, you're not full. So if you could close your eyes, picture a hunger fullness scale with me. There's also something called Google, and you could probably Google it, but that is always a helpful tool that I will pull out with clients, and that I know sometimes a client's therapist will pull out as they are just trying to navigate their murky waters of understanding their hunger and fullness. So let's dive in to the 4 types of hunger. So The first type of hunger is physical hunger. So our bodies set off alarms that let us know that we have a physical need that needs to be taken care of. So if your bladder is full, that is your body saying you have to pee. If your mouth is dry, that is your body saying you are thirsty, you need something to drink. When your eyes start to flutter closed, that is your body saying that you are tired and you need sleep. So when we experience the sensations of physical hunger, that is simply our bodies communicating to us that we are hungry and we have a physical need that needs to be taken care of. The only way to take care of physical hunger is to eat something. And so physical hunger is based entirely on the presence of hunger cues from our body. So oftentimes I think we experience, or we think that we experience physical hunger solely in our stomachs. So maybe a growling sensation or like a hunger pang, or even just that kind of like gnawing, fluttering sensation in your stomach. That is totally a way that we experience physical hunger in our stomach. But we also experience physical hunger outside of our stomachs. So you might experience kind of that low blood sugar, shaky, anxious feeling. That is a way that your body is communicating physical hunger. You might experience a slight headache. I always tell my clients I would never want them to have like a pounding headache, but you might experience it in your head. Every body is different, and we will experience physical hunger in different ways. Even just thinking more about food is a sign of physical hunger. And I think that is often something that is very surprising to clients. But something I always remind my clients is that regular eating is defined as eating every 3 to 5-ish hours. And I would argue that in eating disorder recovery, it's more like 2 to 4-ish. Now, of course, you can eat earlier than 2 hours, and sometimes there's extenuating circumstances where we just genuinely don't have access to food for 5 hours. We are humans, life happens, but I think it's really helpful to kind of have that idea of, oh, eating regularly looks like eating every 3 to 5-ish hours, because that matches the natural rhythms of our digestive system. It matches the natural rhythms of when our blood sugar gets low. And so just having that brain knowledge can be really helpful in eating disorder recovery, especially if your hunger cues are quiet. So it is not uncommon in eating disorder recovery that you don't even feel physical hunger. Your body gets used to receiving an inappropriate amount of food and everything gets quiet. So if you are struggling, for example, with restriction and you are not eating enough, your body is going to go into survival mode and start to conserve the little bit of energy that it's getting. So your metabolism slows down, your digestive system slows down, because your digestive system, it's a muscle. And when we don't use muscles, they get weak. And so food might be sitting in your stomach for a longer period of time if you're not eating regularly, and if you are struggling with something like restriction. So that's my long-winded way of explaining that your hunger cues can very easily get out of whack when you are struggling with different behaviors. So sometimes we have to use our brain knowledge over our body knowledge, and that is intuitive. So what that might look like is working with a dietitian and creating some type of meal structure, meal schedule that will help you get those hunger cues back. And oftentimes it looks like eating more regularly, being more consistent with your meals and snacks. And that can be really tough for someone in recovery. And that is why it's helpful to work with a team. So that was a long tangent on physical hunger. The other thing I want to say about physical hunger is fullness, right? So one of the principles of intuitive eating is feeling your fullness. Now, we cannot honor our fullness until we honor our hunger. And that is where the hunger fullness scale can be really helpful. Like I said, give it a Google. I'm sure you can find it because there's no way I'm figuring out how to share it on Zoom. So when we are responding to our physical hunger and when we are choosing foods that make you feel good and honor what you're craving, and when we're creating meals that are satisfying, that is when we are honoring our hunger. Now, once we honor our hunger, it is important that we are learning and observing what fullness feels like in our bodies. Fullness is complex and it can be really triggering for a lot of people in recovery. So, first and foremost, offer yourself a ton of grace and compassion. You will mess up, and that is okay. That was my experience when I was in recovery, relearning my hunger and fullness cues. You kind of have to have some experiences where you end up uncomfortably full to recognize, oh, maybe I ate beyond the point of just satisfaction this time, or, whatever. That is something that I experienced. Like, eating to a point of discomfort helped me learn, okay, how much does my body need? What are some of those subtle fullness cues that I need to pay attention to? It is a lot of trial and error. And again, if you guys take anything from this video today, every body is different. So you're going to mess up a ton. You're going to keep learning. It's going to be great. So the biggest thing when it comes to feeling the sensation of fullness, especially if it's a triggering feeling that leads to behavior use for you in your recovery, understand that feeling full is a temporary feeling. It will be uncomfortable, it will be challenging, but the feeling will go away without you doing anything. It is how your body naturally works. Your body is smart, and you can trust that your body knows how to do the things it was created to do, like digesting the food that you eat. Again, tying back in physical hunger, we can only satisfy our physical hunger by eating food. We were created to need nourishment, to need nutrition, and your body is smart. It knows how to digest. So if fullness is something that is a triggering feeling for you, your therapist is a great resource to discuss ways that you can distract yourself after a meal, or to work on how to mindfully sit with your fullness without using symptoms. But again, when we eat food, we will experience physical changes. Think about it. Your belly did not have food in it, and now it does. That is how our digestive system works. Food will sit in your stomach for a short period of time, and then the food will make its way to your intestines, through the digestive tract. It's part of being human. Feeling your fullness is part of being human, and your body will digest the food. As your body digests food, waste is created, and that's how nutrients are absorbed. And we need nutrients in order to live, breathe, and walk and laugh. And you can trust your body to navigate the digestive process without any other compensatory behaviors. Your body knows exactly what to do when it comes to digestion, and you do not need to help it in the process. So it is also really important to remember that in recovery, you may experience digestive issues, and you should absolutely consult your doctor and potentially a GI doctor. If I have a client who's struggling with GI issues, I always say, let's cross all our T's and dot all our I's. Let's schedule a GI doctor appointment. Unfortunately, there's usually a wait list to see a GI doctor, so the earlier you can get on someone's schedule, the better. Life hack, just always ask if there are any cancellations, be put on a waiting list. I have had clients be called a lot sooner than their appointment before, so that is my gift to you. That is a life hack. So circling back. Oftentimes in recovery, you may experience gastroparesis, which is a fancy word for the digestive system has slowed down. Again, going back to the fact that your digestive system might be weak in recovery. It's a muscle. If you're not using it, muscles get weak. So if you're skipping meals, or you're not eating adequately enough, or maybe you're struggling in a binge restrict cycle, the muscles in your intestines are not used to being used, and then digestion slows down. And when our digestion slows down, again, we might not feel as hungry as often, but that's where you have to use your brain knowledge and recognize you still need to eat. It is okay that you can't solely rely on your hunger and fullness signals early in recovery because your body is still relearning those signals. That is why it is so critical in your recovery journey if you are struggling to work with a team, whether that is a dietitian, a therapist, a doctor, a GI doctor, a psychiatrist, or all of the above, to help you in those early stages of recovery. Because eating enough, eating consistently, and following your meal structure is one of the best ways for your digestion to work its way back to a normal pace and to be relearning what hunger and fullness feels like in your body. Remember, every body is different. So, working through fullness, it can be uncomfortable, it can be hard, but you can do hard things. And recovery is 4,000% worth the temporary discomfort. So, to put a bow on physical hunger, we cannot honor our fullness until we honor our hunger. That is physical hunger. Moving on to our second type of hunger, and that is taste hunger. Taste hunger is eating something simply because it sounds good. Maybe you are out shopping with some friends, and this example is really going to age me because when I was in high school, me and my friends loved to get frozen yogurt. So maybe you're out with your friends and you guys walk by a frozen yogurt shop. I don't even know if those are still available. I don't know. I don't know the last time I had frozen yogurt, but you're out with your friends, you're shopping, and you guys walk by like frozen yogurt or like a bakery, and maybe you just smell it, and you and all your friends, maybe no one's physically hungry, but you simply go and get frozen yogurt for the experience and because it sounds good. That is honoring your taste hunger. Or maybe after Thanksgiving dinner, you feel full and satisfied. You're no longer experiencing any sort of physical hunger cues, but someone made pie and you want dessert and you eat it anyway, just because it sounds good. That is taste hunger. Now, sometimes taste hunger and physical hunger kind of work together, but the examples that I just shared are when taste hunger is kind of working on its own. So another way to kind of think about taste hunger is it's like a craving. And one of my favorite dietitians on the internet, her name is Kylie Mitchell. She always says cravings are like itches. You just have to scratch them and they go away. And it's so important that we are regularly honoring our taste hunger because that mentally gives us that peace of mind that tasty foods are always available. And something that I always share with my clients, when I was walking through recovery, there was a time where I just had to say yes to every taste hunger opportunity because it was really hard for me to discern whether I at the time was saying no for restrictive reasons or I just genuinely didn't want that food in that moment. And so honoring my taste hunger, saying yes to food experiences just because it sounded good helped me mentally get to that place of, okay, do I genuinely want this or do I not want this right now? And so that is taste hunger. Third type of hunger, emotional hunger. So I think oftentimes people might think of like emotional hunger, they might jump to like emotional eating, which I think tends to be painted in a negative light. I don't know about you, but the first example that I always think of when I hear the term like emotional eating is like you get broken up with and eat a pint of ice cream. Like been there, done that. And I often think it's associated with negative emotions, which are good and we should feel them, but I don't know if anyone like seeks out sadness, if that makes sense. But what I always want to reiterate to clients is food is emotional, right? Like if you are going to a wedding or a birthday party, oftentimes we're eating cake. And oftentimes, I don't know about you, but when I go to a wedding, I'm not, oh my gosh, I'm so physically hungry. Let me have a piece of cake. It's, oh my gosh, I feel joy. I'm celebrating with, the couple, or I'm at a birthday party and we're celebrating. And we are going to participate in this shared food experience because of these different emotions that we're feeling: joy, happiness, um, celebration. And so, what I always want to emphasize to clients is food is emotional. Food invokes emotion, and that is okay, right? Sometimes when we are sad or grieving, we might turn to food as a coping. We might turn to it as a tool in our toolbox. You might get broken up with and eat a pint of ice cream. That is allowed. It is okay, right? I'm not going to try to think of another example off the top of my head. But what I think is so important to recognize is that, like, if I get broken up with and I feel sad and I eat a pint of ice cream, that is okay. I'm allowed to do that. But once the ice cream is gone, I am still sad. Like, the food didn't solve the emotional distress. And so food is absolutely a tool in our toolbox when it comes to coping with certain emotions, but just recognizing that it might not solve the problem, if that makes sense. And like, thank you, God. That's why we have therapists. They're the best. I also think it's important to understand what emotional hunger might feel like in your body compared to physical hunger. So, to kind of distinguish between the two, physical hunger might come on a little bit slower. Maybe it's been a few hours since your last meal or snack. Maybe you like really feel like you need energy, right? Like you're starting to kind of feel that low blood sugar, shaky feeling. Maybe you feel it in your stomach, that hunger or that empty sensation. Emotional hunger might feel like an uncomfortable or intense emotion just came up. Maybe it's coming up a little bit quicker. Maybe it hasn't been very long since your last meal or snack or the last time you ate. Maybe you have a very specific, like, intense craving, and maybe you feel it more in your head rather than in your stomach or any of those other signs of physical hunger that we talked about earlier. So that is hopefully a helpful breakdown kind of between what emotional hunger might feel like as it comes up in your body versus what physical hunger might feel like when it comes up in your body. And again, every body is different. You may or may not experience some of those sensations. And so that's why it can be really important to be learning through trial and error in your recovery journey. So guys, last but not least, we made it to the 4th type of hunger. That is so exciting. I still can't believe I'm doing this solo YouTube video. Look at me go. Lastly, we have practical hunger. And I know for me personally, sometimes I will say to clients, like, here is an opportunity where you can flex your practical hunger muscle. Maybe you've heard of the phrase mechanical eating. That is basically just what it sounds like. You're going through the mechanics, you're going through the motions of eating, even if you don't feel hunger. Maybe that's something you're working on with your dietitian. So, practical hunger isn't exactly a hunger itself, but it's eating in anticipation of physical hunger that you might not be able to satisfy in the moment when it comes on, if that makes sense. So I personally think practical hunger is some of the most helpful language for clients in recovery, because I often think in our diet culture saturated world, people tend to shame someone for eating outside of the boundaries of physical hunger. And sometimes it's just not possible to be in a position where we're amply, I don't know if that's a word. That's definitely not a word. Just when we're able to exactly honor our physical hunger in that exact moment. So, some examples of when it might be a great opportunity to honor your practical hunger. Maybe you are taking a long trip with your family and you're flying on an airplane and your flight leaves sometime after lunch. And you're assuming you won't be able to eat dinner until, you're off the plane. So you and your family have a bigger lunch and you pack snacks in your backpack so you aren't left at running on empty, on a 0 on the hunger scale, which again, Google your hunger fullness scale. It's a really helpful tool. Maybe you have to go with your mom to pick up your brother from soccer practice and you had lunch a few hours ago. And even though you're not hungry, you think between getting in the car and then coming back from practice, you may be really hungry right before dinner. So you bring some snacks in the car so that you can eat when you're not hungry and you don't have to wait till dinner when you're going to be far past a comfortable hunger level. Another example that I see in some of my younger clients who maybe are in high school or even in my older clients who are working a job, eating on your lunch break, even if you aren't necessarily feeling physical hunger in that moment, because you know that that might be your only opportunity to eat your lunch for the next few hours. If you are in high school and maybe you have like science class and then a lab right after your lunch break, typically you can't eat in those classes. And that's kind of annoying and inconvenient, but that would be an opportunity for you to flex your practical hunger muscle and eat out of knowledge rather than just body knowledge, because you know it's going to be the best thing for you and the best thing for your recovery. Or if you're just working a job and maybe you have a job like mine where you talk to people all day, which granted, I eat with clients a lot, so I'm a bad example, but you might have a job where you seriously can only eat on that allotted time that is your lunch break. And so the best thing for your body, the best thing for your recovery might be to seize the opportunity to eat on that break, even if you're not feeling those physical hunger sensations in that moment. That is practical hunger. Sometimes we have to use brain knowledge over body knowledge, and that's okay. Sometimes when it comes to eating, we just have to plan ahead a little bit, and that's okay. It is perfectly okay to anticipate hunger, even if it is not present at that moment. It is perfectly normal to eat on the go. It's necessary at many points in our life, at many times during our day. So that is the 4 types of hunger, everyone. We did it. Virtual high five. I know these concepts can be challenging to understand, especially if you have never heard of them before, or if you are struggling with an eating disorder or disordered eating. You do not have to do this alone. So if you need resources, feel free to check out our website, recoveredandrestoredtherapy.com. We have lots of blog posts. If you're interested in working with someone on our team, feel free to read about our team. We have a whole Meet the Team page. And I would just encourage you, if you are struggling and you need help, reach out to anyone. You are not alone in this. And I think I can speak on behalf of the whole team at Recovered and Restored. We would be honored to work with you. I hope this video was helpful, and I hope you all enjoyed my solo video, and hopefully we're only going up from here.